Now, what would it take to make the legal system of this country great? Well, it takes root and branch reforms, and that was one of the promises of the Tinubu administration when it took over a year ago. A promise to restore the golden age of the Nigerian legal system, which is now clearly in the past. These days, as we analyze the state of Nigeria's legal institutions, that point is regularly made as Nigerians assess the challenges and pressures that everyone that comes in contact with this country's legal system faces, and they wonder whether that once golden age has now been confined to memory. So, 1 year on, has the Tinubu government produced that magic wand to fix Nigeria's legal and judicial impasse? Has the big change come? Is it coming? Or is that a fool's paradise? Because there are many, including those in the legal profession, who reckon that unless the Nigerian judiciary and its legal system is overhauled and urgently reformed, this country's entire legal system is at grave risk of implosion. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the lawyer and former Minister of State for the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja, Barrister Chuka Odom. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you,
Great
Charles.
to see you. I wonder what level of legal reform you would reasonably expect from a government that wants to give hope and reassurance to its citizens and non-citizens about the legal and judicial environment in Nigeria.
Thank you, Charles, for having me on. First of all, for context, it's important to mention to your viewers that the judiciary is a co-equal branch of the government. Under the presidential system we run, the judicial arm is supposed to be independent, even though that appears to be on paper. Now, what actually happens is that as we are trying to unpack what has the fate of the judiciary in the last 1 year. One must be fair to the Tinubu administration in terms of the efforts they have made to fill the vacant positions that has arisen in the Superior Court of Record. I'm talking about the Supreme Court, which has a full complement of justices now. There are moves also to look at the emoluments and salaries of judges of the Superior Courts of Record in Nigeria. But that does not constitute reforms. Reforms are deliberate policy direction that intend to overhaul a system. And I'll give you an example. I don't know why in this age and time our judges will still be writing in longhand in courts.
That's a very good point. I mean, that's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is amazing because other legal jurisdictions in the Commonwealth have leveraged technologies to give the judges, proper approach to administration of justice. Now, we don't run a jury system here, so the judge is both judge and jury. You need to allow the judge to watch the demeanor and temperament of witnesses that are appearing before him.
Rather than scribbling away.
And interrupting proceedings by telling you, look, I'm writing this.
And of course, it slows the process down unbelievably.
It not only slows the process down, it wears out the judges, it makes them irritable, and it doesn't give the judge the opportunity to take full control of his court. So I believe that the proper reforms we are looking at is the one that will create a pool of court officers or court officials that are taking verbatim record of proceedings, which could be produced and presented to the judge in all cases that he presides. And that dispenses with the judge.
But that can't be that difficult.
It's not. The most simple things assume difficult positions when they arrive in Nigeria. So the problem here now is that you need legislation. So for that process to be put in place, first of all, you have to have a clear policy direction in which this will be part and part of the components of it. And you need amendments to the existing laws that allow...
But isn't that purely administrative? Because you mentioned the fact that the judiciary is an independent arm of government. I mean, it has its own administration. Can't they just say, well, this is not working? I mean, we've got to put people in there who, can take notes and present this when the judge wants it.
Absolutely. Your guess is as good as mine. The point here is that, proceedings in court are governed by relevant administrative laws. And for the system to shift away from that system, from that process, we have to have legislations.
Right.
We have to have administrative rules and procedures and guidelines. So it is something that the judiciary from within has to look at and then work towards achieving. The question there is that, is there a will to do that? Is there a will to go away from the old way of doing things? You know, because this whole thing is delaying court cases, it's delaying administration of justice, it wears out the judges. Again, you know, we need to see courthouses that look like arms of government, that looks like the state government house. Because let's face it, these are co-equal branch of government. You know, so when you see courthouses that look like the judges are sweating, there are no ACs, the fan is rustling up, you know, and everybody is irritable, and the lawyers are robed, are sweaty and all that. So that doesn't create the kind of environment where you can administer justice.
Yeah.
So the reforms we are talking about must be two-pronged. Of course, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, who is the Chief Law Officer of the Federation, has to deal with issues of criminal administration of criminal justice. Our police stations, for instance, why are they still looking like rat houses? You go to a police station, you see policemen, you feel like, is this actually what the state looks like? Because when you run into a policeman, he is the state. He represents the state. Absolutely. He is the authority of the state. He can't be looking scruffy. Some of them wear their uniform with slippers and all that. And then some of them buy these things for themselves. So it's ingrained. The rot has permeated down so badly that
they seem to know where to start. So what I wanted to ask you is there a higher threshold and a lower threshold of expectation that you have about the prospect for legal and judicial reform? And has either threshold or components of it started being met under this new administration?
The basic irreducible minimum, as far as I'm concerned, in the administration of justice, is to get the judges to work in a comfortable environment. It's very key and critical. Number two, security of the judges, especially judges of Superior Court of Record. These are people who sit and hear cases from different types of situations, different subject matters. You have to provide them security. Somebody cannot sentence a criminal and then goes back to an estate to live where the criminal also lives. It doesn't work that way. It affects the psyche of the judge. It affects their ability to perform their duties. So you see the number of vehicles that accompany any government official, the siren, how many accompanies judges? And you're talking of co-equal branch of government. So we really need to look at this presidential system of governance because there is a complete disconnect. And the people who are paying the bitter price is the masses, is the people. So any system, any policy, direction, any reform that does not improve the lot of the people is mere academic exercise.
So given the attempt, and you're making some very, very important points there, given the attempt to woo foreign investors to Nigeria and to give the impression both locally and internationally of adherence to the rule of law, how significant is it that either the higher or the lower threshold does not appear to have been met?
Obviously, a lot of international organizations and companies are not coming to Nigeria. And believe me, at the root of this flight of high-end companies that should be in Nigeria by virtue of our size, our population, the market, is the rule of law. They have no confidence in our judicial system. Even companies that are doing business in Nigeria would not agree to insert in the arbitration clauses for the arbitration to take place in Nigeria. They will want you to come to London or to New York. Meanwhile, they are doing business in Nigeria. The lowest concession they can give you is that arbitration will be done in Ghana. They can only agree to mediation in Abuja. So these are evidence that our systems are not functional. And it is not about platitudes, you know, trying to talk about what you've done and what you've not done. It's self-evident that the system collapsed. And in fairness, nobody would say that it is entirely the problem of the Tinubu administration. We all know that the last administration ran this country aground. So what Tinubu probably has succeeded in doing right now is to refloat the vessel. But it's not moving. It's still there, steaming. So the important thing here now is, in what direction does he want to take the country to in all these fronts?
Yes, absolutely. And beyond the more fundamental reforms that you're talking about, do you see the Tinubu administration and the security agencies that operate under his government obeying, complying with, and executing court orders promptly? And if it is so, or if it isn't, what are the implications of that?
Of course, at the root of every governance is rule of law. Otherwise, the alternative is chaos, it's anarchy. And it's really very important, because when we talk about obedience to court orders, there has been this whole perception among Nigerians, you know, that the judiciary is corrupt. And you don't need to look far to see the evidence why Nigerians have that feeling. And that is the way ex parte orders are being traded like in the stock exchange. You know, so you have to reform the system from within. This is a problem that is entirely judicial, for the judicial to attempt to address, because you cannot inspire confidence. And it's the collateral damage of this loss of confidence in the orders emanating from our courts is that there is propensity to disobey those orders. And the government is not exempt. They pick and choose which ones to obey and disobey. And most times you find out that there is a total atmosphere of disdain for the judiciary in the executive branch, whether by conduct, how the governors relate to judicial officers in their states. They consider giving them cars, proper accommodation as a favor. In fact, you have to lobby for all those things. This is not the way co-equal branches of government function.
And you've had the benefit of being in, I mean, you're a lawyer, but you were also a minister.
Yes.
So, I mean, you've been in the executive and you're in the legal system.
Yeah, well, I'm giving you the benefit of what every ordinary, well-discerning Nigerian knows about what is happening in the judicial system today. So it's not just about, you know, what individuals are efforts that are making. For instance, every day in Nigeria, hard-working judges across the country carry out their duties honestly and professionally under very difficult circumstances and conditions. So few people who are politically exposed, judges that are politically exposed, keep trading all these orders and ex parte orders and creating this whole image that the judiciary is corrupt. It is a big problem, and the judiciary has the responsibility to address it, because they will not be treating these judges with kid gloves. You don't give somebody a slap in the wrist for issuing orders that don't make sense, and when they're in conflict with orders of course of coordinate jurisdiction. It is absolute anarchy.
That's a very good point. But also, it doesn't help, does it, when the administration, the government, doesn't obey court orders. And I'm wondering how difficult and awkward a situation that would put President Tinubu, for example, when he goes abroad trying to woo investors, when clearly the legal environment in Nigeria isn't strong enough to enhance international confidence.
We have made a fetish of wooing investors. Investors need not to be wooed. They gravitate towards environments that generate revenue for them, that generate profit, and guarantees the security of their investment. This whole idea that you woo investors, it presupposes that the investors have no brains. You know, they fly over our airspace and go to Ghana and go to Kigali. Those people are not wooing them. They're finding their way to South Africa. They're finding their way to Rwanda, to Kigali, and all those places. So the misconception in this country, and which is part of the fraudulent narrative of most government officials that are going abroad to look for investment. You don't look for investment. Nigeria is an investment. The investment opportunities abound here. This is the last frontier for profit. But the point is that nobody is interested because they don't trust the judicial system. The minute you arrive at the airport, somebody is greeting you elaborately so that you can part with some money. The system is not designed to inspire confidence. That's the point. So if any reform that can really change the trajectory of things in Nigeria, it must begin to address some of these basic elementary issues.
So from what you're saying, you're clearly not growing in confidence with regard to the rule of law in Nigeria. But let me get you to wear your political hat now. You joined Emeka Ihedioha in that dramatic moment when he resigned from the PDP in late April. You also resigned from the PDP. What led you to resign? And was your departure inspired by Mr. Ihedioha's decision to leave the party, or did you have your own grievances?
If you read the letter I wrote to my ward chairman, which I copied to the national chairman of the party, I made it clear that the PDP as a political party is no more in a position to offer credible opposition. And credible opposition is important in any democracy. You have a government, then you must have an opposition. That is how democracies grow. And when PDP has become an appendage of the ruling party, and when it has maintained an incestuous relationship with the ruling party, then it's time for those who don't feel like they want to be in opposition to quit. So that's how I left. And if you read the second paragraph of that letter, I said, I'm leaving partisan politics for now. So yes, every political family have their own nuclear organization. I work with the former governor of the state because I believe he's a man who had a vision, and the 7 months he spent trying to put things right, it's clear enough that the state was going somewhere. So it's neither here nor there. I took that decision because I believe that this is the right time to get out of the boat. And since PDP as a political party has lost its way, maybe they can figure it out themselves. But for now, I'm partyless, and I'm not actively involved in partisan politics.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, I guess you could say that you're in political wilderness because you are not a member of any party. Someone suggested that you might be waiting to see any real evidence of realignment in opposition politics amid talk of mergers and alliances. Is that a fact?
I'm not opposed. And in that letter also, I said I will continue to engage with progressive elements in the polity to find ways of bettering the lot of the masses in this country. Leadership is about giving in. It's about value addition. Politics is a game of addition, it's not a game of subtraction. So yes, if we find a platform, if we find people of like minds coming together and they have genuine and honest intention to effect changes in the country, to effect changes that will impact the man on the street, of course, what stops me from being a party to it? But for now, I have to see that happening. And if in the process of watching and looking around and I see a direction in which this is happening, well, I could change my mind, but right now, it is what it is.
I want to thank you very much indeed. It's always incredibly illuminating talking with you. I thought your assessment of the legal system in this country was really quite brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Barrister Chuka Odom is a lawyer and former Minister of State for the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye and thank you for watching.